Great. So thank you for inviting us into your classroom today. Today's session is to provide you an opportunity to gain more insight and exposure in the field of manufacturing and to assist you in analyzing your own future career choices. So for today's guests, I have Jason Gabler, owner of Advantage Metal Powders, over in between Ridgeway and Kersey. And I have Terry Hinton from the Northern PA Regional College. She was with us for our first session, and she's back today to update us on some dates that her programs will be starting up this winter. So I'm going to thank you both for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. So I'm going to start with Jason. Can you tell us a little bit about your company and share like your personal career pathway?
First of all, I'd like to say that I'm a student just like them. I was never in the front row either. In the front row. But no, my company is located, like Amy said, over in Ridgeway. If anybody's went to the Summit, you know where the Summit Hotel restaurant is, right across from the Summit. My career path, when I was, I don't know, what do we have, 11th graders, 12th graders there. When I was in high school over there, I did as well the mechanic shop, the machine shop, and I like working on cars. I like racing cars. I like smashing cars. I ran demolition derbies for quite a few years, so I wanted to own a junkyard. I wanted to strip cars and sell parts and work with my hands. And when I went to the city to start up a junkyard my senior year, right after high school, I was pretty much told that unless you were grandfathered in, meaning that you were already had a junkyard in the county of Elk County, you couldn't start a junkyard. So I knew I wanted to do something on my own. I wanted to be my own employer or work for myself, but I knew that I needed to learn what that meant. So the reason I wanted to be my own employer is because I knew a lot of people or friends of my father's that they always seemed to have the best cars or the most time off, or they always seemed to be living the life of what I like to do. And what they have all in common is they own their own business. So after looking at not being able to own a junkyard, I went over to talk to Rick's junkyard. He wouldn't sell to me. So I thought, what else is around here? So powdered metal was pretty dominant in this area, and I didn't really know anything about powdered metal. But what I found out is that it's the industry of this area. So I ended up going to college for a year up in Erie, Penn State Barron, to be an engineer. And when I was your age in 12th grade, I thought an engineer drove a train. I didn't know what an engineer was, but I wanted to be a mechanical engineer because that's what my guidance counselor told me I should do. I like working with my hands. So I should be an engineer and fix stuff. So went to school for a year, hated it. Didn't like college, wasn't any good at it, so I quit and came back and got a job in the heat treat shop in St. Mary's. And after 6 months or a year of working third shift doing that, I decided to go back to school part-time and try to do that engineering gig. So I drove to Du Bois while I was working and ended up getting a 2-year degree in mechanical engineering. Ended up getting a job at a place that is now currently my competitor, but worked my way up a couple different plants, working on places that make powder, and that's what I currently do is I make powder and sell it to people that in the area that makes parts. Ended up working for a company called Art Metals in Ridgeway, a place called North American Hogannis, which is down by the Lulu's Market in St. Mary's. Worked there for 3 years, then worked for a company called Abbott Furnace Company for 7 years there as an engineer, but then also got into selling furnaces. That took me, that opened up, I was able to literally travel the world for Abbott Furnace. Been to China, been to Spain, Brazil, Canada, all over the United States. Got to learn a lot of the industry, a lot of the people in the industry. And after 7 years of learning and building building my resume at Abbott Furnace Company, I set off to try to pursue my original goal of owning my own company. And I went to work for a company at Alpha Cindered Metals in Ridgeway to sell powdered metal parts, because the actual powdered metal parts I didn't know a whole lot about at this point. I knew the powder, I knew the furnaces. So I worked at Alpha for 3 years, and then an opportunity came up that this place was for sale, Advanced Metal Powders. I didn't have any money. I ended up finding a guy, he found me, I found him, we found each other together at a camp, actually over a beer around the bar at a camp. We started talking, and he was in the logging industry. He was getting out of the logging industry, looking to do something. He had 10 years on me. He was 10 years older than me. He had the finances. I had the experience. And together we bought this place 12 years ago. And 2 years ago, Steve retired, and my wife and I bought him out. So now my wife and I are the sole owners of Advanced Metal Powders. Hopefully that wasn't too long-winded for you, Amy.
No, that's just all some great information. You've certainly been around the area in and out of some different plants, but you can tell that gave you an edge. You've learned a lot of the different aspects of powdered metal, and I think that's probably helped in your position now, that you totally understand pretty much every aspect of it. And I think it shows the students that, starting at an entry level in a company doesn't mean you're going to stay there forever. You can move depending on your interests, on the skills that you're learning through all these positions. So it's a great story.
Absolutely. To that effect, can I tell a little story about my friend named George? And this is a true story. And I met George when I was working at Abbott Furnace Company. George started out as a floor sweeper. He had no college experience. He went to work every day. He did a great job. He did exactly what was asked of him, and he did a little bit more each day. George got noticed by the owners, by his bosses. George then went from a floor sweeper to a welder, from a welder to a supervisor, from a supervisor out on the floor. He ended up being in sales at Advantage Metal, or at Abbott Furnace Company, and he got to the point where he owned his own powder metal company. George is doing extremely well today, and it's all because he just worked hard at it. No real college training, just show up to work, do the job, do better than what's asked of you, and you will climb the ladder. You can't get to the top of the ladder without starting at the bottom line. So. And
since you've been around to some, several different companies in the area, do you feel that all of them support, helping their employees get where they want to be?
Absolutely, 100%. I'd almost like to go back to the guys and gals that are watching right now and be in their shoes and see if I could live that path of the last 25 years of my life over again, just because I know for a fact anybody that wants to become anything can be whatever they want in this area of manufacturing. There are so many jobs, from accounting, engineering, lab techs, laborers, human resources. You don't have to get your hands dirty, or you don't have to just be a laborer for the rest of your life. And being a laborer is awesome in its own, because there are definitely, I know a lot of people that are done the same job for the last 20 years, but they got 6 weeks vacation. They're making 40, 50, 60 grand a year. That's life. You can raise a family and have a house and living in this area with real no formal education. But to answer your question, absolutely. I truly believe anybody with the desire to become something can be whatever they want in this area, and the owners and the employers in this area will recognize it over time for sure.
So oftentimes I hear from the younger generation that, they have their sights set on one thing, and that's they want to take the direct path there. So how important is it that they start at that entry level position, even if it's not where they want to be?
I guess I'll go back to the fortune cookie that I opened up one time 15, 20 years ago, and it says you can't make it to the top rung without starting at the bottom. You can't make it to the top of the ladder without starting at the bottom rung. So it's almost impossible to become your dream job without working your way up to it. And you don't want your dream job, in my opinion, without all the stumbling, learning blocks that you have to go through to get to that dream job. You're not going to have a dream job or have respect of the people under you at that dream job unless you lived it, unless you've already went through the learning curves and the pains and suffering of learning everything to get to that dream job. So I think it's almost impossible to realistically think that you're going to be at your dream job without having to go through the ropes first.
So besides working hard, what other advice do you have for, a newcomer in the industry in their first job? What are some other things that they can do to get them where they want to be?
Show up on time every day that you're supposed to come to work. If you're supposed to come to work at 8 o'clock, be there 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late. Don't be late. Don't call off work at short notice. I have 20 employees here, and it was getting to the point where, we have a policy here that we initiated that if you give 2 days notice for all of your vacation throughout the year, you get $100 every quarter. So it's kind of deter people from, waking up in the morning and calling off. Your company needs you, and they expect you to be there, and there's a job there for you to do that day. And showing up on time, and don't call off short notice.
That's great advice. Sometimes I think that it's hard for people to express their interests, their desires. So how important is it that, they talk to their boss about, what their goals are and kind of work towards that, see how they can work towards that?
Nobody's a mind reader, so if you have goals that you want to achieve and dreams and places that you'd like to be, have those conversations with your supervisors, absolutely. So yeah, I think it's very much important. Not everybody knows what everybody else is thinking, so have that conversation, but don't be demanding. Say, hey, this is where I'd like to be. I always look at my career as, where do I want to be next year? Where do I want to be 2 years from now? And where do I want to be 5 years from now? And then work towards those goals of 1 year. Okay, did I make it to that goal that I wanted to be in a year? Maybe it's a month from now. Maybe set your goals every month, set your goals every year. But before you know it, you're going to be pushing 50 like I am, and now it's not too far away where I'm looking at, I don't want to work for the rest of my life. So now what's my goals of retirement? So, but it's individual steps all the way. The end goal is when you turn 62 or 65 or hopefully less than that, retiring, because that's what we're all working for. But you got to do it in steps. So my advice would be, see where you want to be a month from now, a year from now, 3 years from now, and try to achieve those goals, and then having a conversation with your supervisor or the people above you, absolutely have it.
You probably already answered this, but I'll ask it. How can someone entering this, career industry stand out from the crowd?
Show up on time. No short call-ons. Do what you're asked, or even a little bit more. you know, if you're expected to go the extra mile, go an extra mile and a half. Everybody else is going a mile, so you go a mile and a half, you're going to stand out from the rest of them that are the rest of the people that you're really competing with. Life is about competition. You're competing for that promotion. You're competing for that better job. You're competing for the, you know, the more money, the raise, whatever. Do better than the people that you're working with. Your peers, try to look at them as not equal. Try to do something better than what your competition is.
So we've had some companies come and speak, and they are the ones that are actually making the parts. So can you explain, your company is a little different. You're like the first piece of the part. So can you explain a little bit about your company and what you guys, you know, how you guys fit into this manufacturing industry?
Yeah, we buy a bunch of different types of powders. So this is just a bag of powder. It's iron powder. We buy iron powder, we buy copper powder, graphite, lubricants, all the different things that we need to mix together, just like if you were baking a cake. Are you going to make a chocolate cake? Are you making a carrot cake? Are you making a white cake? You're going to start with different ingredients to make that cake. So we're going to start with different ingredients to make different parts. We're not actually, my company's not making the parts, but my company's making the powder that's going to be sold to the companies that are making the parts. So any idea what this part might be? Anybody out there? I know you can't hear me around you, but it's a connecting rod. So you have a piston, if you know what a motor is, you have a piston here and you have your crankshaft here. And these are connecting rods. They're made by American Axle in Ridgeway, and they're made by GKN in Emporia. They're pretty much make all the connecting rods for all the cars in the United States, right here in this area. But so this started with powder. They compact it at room temperature to this shape, and then as it comes out of the press, you can break it with your hand. But then they take it and they put it in a furnace, just like when I was at Abbott Furnace. They take it and put it in one of those furnaces. They heat it up to about 2,050 degrees, which when you're looking inside the furnace, 2,050 degrees is almost like looking at the sun. It's glowing orange. And all those little iron particles weld themselves together to make this part. When this part comes out of the furnace, you drop it on the floor, you hit it with a hammer, and you're not going to break it. I mean, if you know anything about a motor, there is a lot of force on this part. So the composition of this part with the iron and the ingredients is going to be different than this part. This is a part that you're riding lawnmower, the motor transmission comes back, and this is there's two more little gears that go in these holes, and this is what drives the rear tires of your riding lawnmower. Different properties need to be in this part than it does in this part. So it's my job to come up with what type of iron powder we start with. There are probably 50 different types of iron powder. Some has nickel in it, some has moly in it, some has manganese in it, some's just straight iron. Even just straight iron, there's probably 10 different types of straight iron, depending on the density and the properties that you need in the parts. So my job is to have my customers come up and say, I need this part to be so hard, so much torque, I need these teeth to be so strong. What powder mix do you want to sell me to make this part? So we take and we come up with composition, just like baking those cakes. We now take and we throw the iron in, the copper in, the graphite in, just like you would the flour, the eggs, and whatever else, because I don't know how to bake to make a cake. But you mix them all together, and what we have is, this is a big blender. So to give you an idea how big this blender is, all it is the cone up top, cone on the bottom. We fill the powder with the top, and it rotates. Give you an idea how big that is. Right there is that same blender with all my employees standing underneath it. So it's 3-4 stories tall. You fill it up with powder. It rotates on this shaft right here, spins around for about a half hour and it mixes all those ingredients together. We then pack the powder out in a bunch of different types of containers depending on what the customer wants. We have bulk packs, bags, drums, but we pack that material out. We take a sample of it. We send it into our lab. We have 3 lab techs here that take the powder and they test it for all kinds of different properties just to make sure that the powder does exactly what my customer needs it to do to make the part that they're going to make out of that powder. So the employees that we have here, we have about 8 or 9 that do the actual mixing, taking all the ingredients, mixing. I have 3 employees that test those mixes after they're made to make sure that it does what the customer needs. I have a production manager that makes sure that all the orders are produced and shipped out on time. I have an order entry girl and also my shipping coordinator. I have an office administrator, so she does all the billing and answers the phone and takes care of the office. I have a sales manager, so he's the one that goes to travel in the United States, knocking on the powder metal guys, the companies that make powder metal parts, trying to sell our powders. And I have a truck driver. So I don't know if you've ever seen Advantage Metal Powders truck driving around the area, but I have a truck driver that hauls powder and delivers to all the companies. So yeah, there's 20 of us here.
Okay. So do you hire, I have some questions from students. Do you hire under 18? And if you do, well, like what kind of positions do you have for that age?
I've gone through probably 4 or 4 students. I currently have a student in 11th grade. He comes in and gets dropped out. He's 11th grade from Ridgeway, but he gets dropped off out front here from his bus. He comes in and I have different jobs from sweeping the floor to making bulk packs, to helping the guys in production weigh out materials. 2 of my 20 employees started off as school to work people. One, his name's Derek. He's been with us probably 10 years now, like 9 years. He started out, he was in 12th grade. He started out the same way. He was just a helper, a couple hours a day. He's been with us 9, 10 years now. And then a student that was with us for a year and a half, he graduated last year. He's now a full-time employee. And I just hired about 2 months ago this new gentleman now that he's currently in 11th grade. So yes, we do. And actually, my cleaning girls, I have Allison Schaefer. I think maybe some of you guys might know her out there, but Allison Schaefer, she comes in here along with Sky, and they come in for a couple of hours every night and take the garbage out, sweep the floors, mop the floors, and they're my janitorial staff. So I guess I got three employees right now that are still in high school.
What is your average starting wage?
Full time, it's $13.50 an hour. My high school kid right now is making $10 an hour.
And what kind of benefits do you offer?
The full gamut, if you will, I guess. Health coverage. We do have Aflac where you can get eye, dental, that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, we got pretty good UPMC healthcare. Pretty good down for health coverage.
Okay. I think I'll open it up to the audience. Mrs. Gavazzi, does anybody out there have any questions?
Hey, I have a question for you, Jason. This is Jason Schreiber talking, and I teach their math class. I'm just curious what math skills you think are important throughout all your positions that you've had. And this is more for me, so I can update the class as we go. But just curious.
Was the question what math skills we need around here? Okay.
Yeah.
We have what we call blend sheets. So the guys on the floor get a piece of paper that has all the information of what they need to weigh out, what they need to gather to make the blend. So on that blend sheet, they need to weigh out like 27,952 pounds of one type of material and 233 pounds of another material. They need to add those materials up, so when they put everything into the blender, when they pack the material out, that's our first quality check. That all the weight comes out of the blender that should have been in the blender. So if we're making, let's say, a 50,000 pound blend right now, and they pack out 42,500, where's the missing material? So they need to know some math, pretty easy math, to just add the numbers up, but then also to make sure that the numbers add up at the end of the day, that the stuff that went in the blender should have came out of the blender. And if it didn't come out of the blender, why didn't it come out of the blender? Because it's still in the blender, which is almost impossible, or was it not put in the blender? So now it's our troubleshooting, if you will, to figure out what didn't make it into the blender. There's also, they need to calculate from pounds to grams occasionally. So you need to know that there's 454 grams in a pound. I try to have my computer system do as much math as we can for the employees, but occasionally you do have to convert from pounds to grams. The employees that I have in the lab, one has a degree, the other two do not, so I trained them on the job training. There's a lot more math in the lab testing powders and a lot more calculations. So you need to take a dimensional change of a transverse rupture bar, which is 1 1/4 inch. You put it through the furnace, and that is now 1.2511. You need to do the calculations to figure out the dimensional change. How much did it grow or shrink in centering? That's just one example. But there's really no calculus. There's no extremely hard math, but just even the basics. But sometimes it's hard to find people that know the basics. But we're very fortunate. The people that we have working here have been here. A lot of them have been here longer than me, and I've been here 12 years. But it's just the basics, I guess, to answer your question on how much math.
That's a great question. Do we have any other questions?
I think we're good, Amy.
You good? All right. Jason, is there anything you'd like to add?
Latent pair of faces in the front row. No, I don't really have a whole lot to add other than what's probably the most important thing that we talked about here today. And I truly believe the most important thing we talked about today we didn't even mention. And that's don't start doing any drugs. I myself, I'm 46 years old. I got a couple of buddies in the graveyard because they got hooked up on just starting to smoke marijuana, and ended up they're dead because they got hooked on heroin. So that's another thing that we probably should have talked about, Amy, is show up on time. Don't be late. Don't call off, and don't be on drugs. Other than that, I'm good, Amy.
Do you guys, that brings me to a question. Do you guys do drug testing for your hiring process?
We do not.
You don't? Okay.
Not. But
okay.
If there's an accident, or if there's a reason that we believe somebody is on drugs, or any accident, accidents happen, the first thing we do is take them to the hospital and make sure they're not on drugs. So we do check if there's an accident, or if the employees seem like they're not themselves, then we get them checked, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I think I'm going to move on to Terry at this time, but thank you for your valuable information. It was all very good, good advice.
Thank you.
So Terry, do you want to pick up right now and tell us about what you have coming up on with your program?
Absolutely, and I really appreciate being here today to be here with Jason. I just want to reiterate what Jason has sort of led as the theme in his talk, and that is ambition, ethics, and passion. Those are the things that you can see are really woven in Jason's story. And it's great to be able to talk to all of you again, because previously I talked a little bit about our program at the Northern Pennsylvania Regional College. And Jason is one of my instructors. He is one of my leaders. He is an industry champion. He was one of the first people I went to when we were putting the program together. So it's my honor and my privilege to be working alongside Jason to help roll out our program. So if you want to be like Jason, you can learn more from Jason by taking NPRC's Introduction to Powder Metal coursework. Short-term training, 2 hours or 2 nights a week for 8 weeks. You can do that once, you can do it twice, you can do it up to 3 times, as much or as little as you want. And you can learn firsthand all the beautiful things that he was talking about today. You can have face-to-face, well, now virtually, but it is a very, very good program for 40 hours. And Jason is one of my advisory members and also one of our key instructors. So if you want to be like Jason, you can learn more from Jason. So if you're interested in learning more, Chris, you have the information and my contact information. We're running a program starting again in February for 8 weeks. And then we'll run another program in April for 8 weeks. It's at night. And what the program will do for you is give you some greater in-depth conversational abilities to be able to move up, to get a higher wage, and also learning for people like the experts like Jason. Jason teaches the first couple pieces in the raw material phase, much like he shared with you today. So I'm really excited about what we're doing, and we continue to tweak the program to make it viable, to make it important for what is going on today. So thank you, Jason, for being part of the program, and I hope that you all consider signing up and taking advantage of our programs. Any questions? And Jason, do you want to add to what I just said?
I really don't, Terry. You hit it all. We're good. Thank you. Other than I can't believe anybody wants to be like Jason, but other than that.
Mrs. Gavazzi, does anybody have any questions for Terry?
I think we're good. Thank you.
I just wanted to add, when you students, if you hook up with the Northern PA Regional College that's right here in downtown St. Mary's, as she said, the instructors are actually, you know, members of our community. They are business owners, or they're, you know, have great positions within manufacturing in our area, and they become a great resource for you, a great networking resource. They can help you with jobs. They can help you get you to where you want to be. So I just wanted to add that, you know, having that available to you right here in our town is an amazing opportunity for you. All right. Well, if we have no more questions, I think we'll end the session today. And I just want to, again, thank Jason and Terry for joining us. And we will be back next month with our guests from Horizon Technologies.
Thank you, Amy. Thanks, Terry. Thanks.
All right.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Nice to see you all.